What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. So today we're going to talk about how to find your life purpose through astrology. Let's roll the intro. Let's go. All right. So how do we find our life purpose, through astrology? So there's a few things you look at. The first, let's talk about the North Node, the Midheaven, the Sun. There's more, but that's a good start. So basically, I've made videos about the North Node before, and everyone has a very unique life purpose, right? I should add that in. Everyone's life purpose is very unique, and it might not be so obvious based off of just understanding these components of the chart. But if you understand your North Node, right? So I made videos about that before. This is your I like to call it, it's like where you're trying to get to, right? And the South Node being what comes easy to you, what you're used to, basically, right? So you're trying to it's like a mountaineering expedition up Mount Everest to your North Node. And it's kind of similar with the Sun. We definitely grow into the qualities of our sun sign. A lot of people, I made a lot of polls on my Instagram. That's how I learn a lot of things, through polls I make and through directly asking my followers and my clients. And it was something like, what do you think represents you the most? Sun, moon, ascendant, blah, 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 South Node I had in there. And I think Sun got last, if I'm not mistaken. So people don't really relate that much with their suns. I mean, I know people who don't know much about astrology, they might be like, oh, I'm Pisces, oh, I'm a Virgo, blah, blah, blah. But when you learn about your ascendant, when you learn about your moon, things typically make more sense. In my experience with most people, it's the South Node that really shows up a lot too. But regardless, you have the sun sign for a reason, right? And North Node for a reason as well. So as I was saying, then that North Node is that primary indicator of life purpose in astrology. And even though they're not physical points, right? Their calculations based on the moon's orbit and the ecliptic, they're still very, very powerful. And we each have, we're born at, the beauty and magic of astrology is that each of us is born at the exact moment, as Edgar Cayce, the psychic, said, that is an exact, I totally messed that up. We are born at the exact moment that is in exact alignment with our true karmic purpose. It's just like the perfection of God, the perfection of everything, right? I mean, there's so much perfection, and then we live on this planet and we feel like there's so much imperfection. We feel like, I just woke up at 2, like, there's not this in my life. There's not that in my life. But then we get these little sparks of magic, these little periods of just like, whoa, like, okay, I see how everything is intertwined. I see, how maybe my brain, I know I'm rambling, but it all ties back. Maybe my brain, in the way that I'm only allowed to use a certain percentage of it, maybe there's a meaning to that. Maybe if I remembered everything from my past lives, life would be less meaningful. My free will would be less meaningful. My challenges would be less meaningful, right? So this is what we're talking about. But anyways, Pisces, Mercury, let's go reel it back in. Anyways, so North Node. So yeah, it's definitely very challenging, especially at a young age. You haven't typically learned to integrate it. I think of so many examples, myself included, as a Leo South Node, right? Where you're kind of living in that South Node energy, but your North Node, it feels, like I said, it's like a mountaineering up Everest, right? So it feels more difficult. It doesn't feel so natural. It feels good when you go towards your North Node, right? Yeah, it can be very odd when you first find out about it. You might be like, damn, like this is like everything besides what I am, right? but then you, like a lot of people get this like this sensation of like, ugh, of course, you know, it's like it's that thing that's annoying that I know is very important because when you are headed towards your north node, and guys, we can like go towards it and then away from it, and you know, it can take a lot of different meanings, just like the signs do. You know, like a north node in Aquarius in the 6th house, for example, could be very much about being there for humanity, and also, you know, for friendships and stuff like that. But you know, 6th house could also be something that feels so minute and like it wouldn't be such a big deal, like taking care of your body, taking care of sleep, right? Your day-to-day routine, stuff like that. So there's a lot. It's really different for everyone. Just looking at my notes I have here. Excuse me. But yeah, so basically, and yes, I made notes. Isn't that crazy? We're trying to move beyond past patterns here, right? We're trying to move beyond, you know, what comes easy to us, and on that north node journey, it feels we almost, it's almost like when we do something that is in line with that north node, it's like you get a little kiss from God or something. It feels like you tend to get a feeling or something that happens where you could, oh, fucking dogs. I love dogs, but yeah. Actually, I know exactly what dog that is. His name is, God, I forget it. I met him last night. Regardless. You feel like this sense of doing something right. Like working really hard for a test, and maybe the test wasn't the best, most exciting subject for you, but you got an A on it. Good job. Okay. So, yeah, so you look at the south node too, because this is like a lot of times you can understand some of what you're trying to move past by understanding the south node, right? South node, yeah. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I think I've talked about that extensively in other videos. If you want to go check out my north node in all 12 signs, and you can see that for your sign or for every sign. But yeah, so let's see. Besides the north node, you have to understand that anything conjunct, so I have Venus conjunct the north node, right? So a lot of people have planets conjunct the north node. This adds a whole new dimension. Same with the south node, but the south node, it's more related to kind of conjuring up that past life story. So yeah, planets, like for example, I'm thinking of a client not too long ago. She had, I can't remember the signs, but I remember she had Mars was on the north node, and it kind of played into the general theme of her chart of the need to take action and not let people roll all over her, you know, to really find herself and yeah, and really move towards being more assertive. So that's an example. So yeah, so with the sun, I would say that obviously you want to look at the sun and then the ruler of the sun, the house of the sun. It's my belief that the moon is what comes very obvious to us. It's very linked to our past karma. It's just our instinct, right? It's our instinctual selves. When we're kids, we're in our moon or maybe our south node. We kind of, like the ascendant is very much our personality. It's kind of how, you know, like what people see. It's a lot more than this, guys, but this is just a basic thing. But the sun, I don't know, I feel like sometimes it does take a lot of time to grow into that, right? And it can be overlooked also, not in the societal type of way. Obviously, everyone knows their sun signs. It's but just in when you're looking at astrology through this perspective of like, how can I find my purpose? So yeah, so basically, a lot of people, like I said, they identify with you know, other parts, like my poll showed. But the sun sign reveals, you know, what you're trying to bring into this world, right? You chose your sun sign for a reason. It's not just some random thing. And it's how you're trying to shine, right? You're trying to shine in the manner of the sun sign. So I think that it can definitely take some time. And you want to look at, obviously, the sign of the sun, understand what's the high vibe, what's the low vibe, and then the house, right? So understand that's the area of life that you're supposed to shine in. And then the ruler. So, for example, I'm a Pisces sun. The ruler for my sun in Pisces is Neptune, and Neptune or Jupiter, depending on if you use what type of astrology you use. So for me, Neptune in Capricorn, the 5th house, it would just add more detail, right? And yeah, so that's important to know about. And then the 8th house, and then the house, obviously, for me, 8th house, that's like very much the occult, esoteric, the more underground, hidden stuff of life. So for you, what is that? Is it the 9th house? Is it about learning and higher learning and traveling and moving around and kind of creating this new truth, or finding this new truth, this new grand philosophy for yourself? Is it something more related to your family and your internal life? Yeah. So then there's the midheaven, right? The midheaven is the highest point in your chart. In some chart, it should say based on what site, if you use a site or software, but you have the 4 angles: ascendant, descendant, IC, midheaven. It's the highest point of the sky at the moment that you were born, and it's the 10th house cusp also. So that is really linked to your ambition. And really what you're trying to become. It says a lot about your dharma, especially if there's planets there. Those are very important for how you're perceived on a global, large-scale level, and then also how you are, what for example, I know a lot of singers or artists. Hey, Esme, who have Venus there, right, or Neptune. But it can also be a little bit, I've seen it be a little bit self-defeating too, where it can be really tough. But it can sometimes feel with certain placements like a lot of pressure. Kind of I've noticed that. Esme, what do you have to say? What do you say? Oh, you want your own video? It's coming. Jeez, Esme, okay, God. Yeah, so some people think of the midheaven as it's just about career. It's more about dharma. Right? Dharma, if you think about the old times, astrology's always existed. This is God's language. There didn't used to be corporations and stuff like that, So astrology doesn't change, the times change. So it's a very modern age twist, industrial revolution twist to think, oh, it's just your career. It's not. All that stuff is synchronistic. Everything is God, but you know what I mean? So it could be also about your reputation, right? It could be about, really, the midheaven is very interesting, right? Because it's people who don't know you, especially if you do social media. For me, for example, right? I have my Instagram, I just started doing the YouTube, or taking the YouTube seriously. So I have no planets in Earth. And this isn't about me or anything, guys. I really try to make, that's another thing about me, Leo South Node, North Node in Aquarius. It's make it as little about me as possible, right? Saturn. But I have a Taurus midheaven, and I'm just what the heck? But you look at the ruler too, right? So it tells you a lot. And I've had people tell me you the Taurus midheaven makes sense, right? You're trustworthy, and you have a grounding effect. I'm huh, okay. Yeah, okay, interesting. And it made me start wondering, and I've kind of seen this in the charts. I know I was talking about this before with the idea of growing into something, right? Because a lot of what I've mentioned today, I feel the midheaven is definitely, because it's so high up, it makes sense to me. I've seen it. I've just kind of come up with this on the spot, guys. I feel we tend to work up to our midheaven. It would only make sense, right? It's the highest part of the chart, and it might not be so easy to present yourself in the highest vibe way, according to whatever sign or whatever planet is up there. And it could be planets in the 10th house too, but or even planets in the 9th house that are conjunct the midheaven, close enough to the midheaven, right? But yeah, so that's an example of that. And then you look at the ruler. So obviously, like ruler for me with Taurus would be Venus. Venus in the 6th house of Aquarius conjunct North Node. So then that makes more sense because it's like Venus in Aquarius conjunct. It's basically my midheaven is connected to my North Node, which then we're like, okay, makes sense. And part of fortune is conjunct exact. The midheaven, okay. See, everything in astrology, it takes a lot of unfolding. It might not make, some things might not make sense when you first look at them, but over time, everything always makes perfect sense, right? And when things are out of alignment, like I know with certain people, everyone watching this video has at least one person in their life where they're like, they're a Pisces, but I don't see any compassion, or I don't see any, of what's spoken about with the Pisces. They're just really hardworking, or they're just like this, like that, whatever. Guys, this is all, it's very easy. I can make a whole video about that too, for someone's energy to get shut down when they're young, and for that core essence of who they are, for them to just not move towards it. There's a lot of pressure, especially for men, to be a certain way and to not be another way, right? So you have a lot of men that have more feminine charts. Like, it's like Carl Jung talked about that, right? Like you like the Anima and the Animus, right? Like you want to have that duality between feminine and masculine, or else you're gonna overcompensate with, let's say a partner, or in some other way you're gonna be overcompensating because you don't have it. You don't have one of them. So it's like the idea of like the super masculine husband and then the super feminine wife, right? And traditionalists, now we're going another direction, but traditionalists speak about, like the need for that. And I don't know. I'm kind of like, I understand the value, but at the same time, I do think that on a psychological level, to reach psychological wholeness, we definitely have to work on those qualities of having that balance between both. And also astrology can show us, I know women who have extremely masculine charts. And then you have a lot of like this, you can call these like the purpose points or whatever. And there's more to it, right? I'm going to talk about Saturn also. But, they have a lot of these in very masculine positions, right? And then I know a lot of men who have very feminine charts and very feminine natures. And it's like, are you rejecting that? So I think women are gifted in that way of spiritual intelligence, like it's not so often, or it's more rare to find men who have that spiritual intelligence, and even when you meet them, a lot of them, when you get to know them, are kind of weirdos. Just gonna be honest. But yeah, just some 2 cents. Esme, what are you looking at over there? She's got an intense look on her face. Just like, say it, Daddy, say it. Not in that way, Jesus Christ. Okay, so then there's Saturn, right? So obviously Saturn is a karmic teacher, right? So we have to especially if we have Saturn making big aspects, or, you look at you look at the sign, but you really look at the house. You look at where it's placed. What is it aspecting your sun? Is it aspecting your moon? Is it in like square, opposition, quincunx, conjunction, right? Like any of those 4 mainly. Is it on an angle like the IC, right? Is it in a tough house? Saturn usually is in a pretty tough position. Like I have Saturn in the 5th house, for example. And it's like, it's with Neptune and Uranus, so it makes it more fun, but still. It's kind of an area of life that you have to really overcome a staleness. You just have to move past boulders. It's like you're on this path, and there's just these big boulders in front of your path that keep showing up. You're like, God damn it, this boulder. ugh, or no, I'm gonna go over it, or ugh, okay, I'm gonna find a way. That's Saturn. So overcoming difficulties and achieving that mastery, and it takes patience, takes perseverance, right? And various people who have a lot of Saturn in their chart, they have to grow up very fast, or like lots of Capricorn, right? They have to grow up very, very fast, and they do that, and they get a lot of, their life tends to get a lot better with age, but it can be very frustrating, right? So, even though it is showing you, and people kind of get this like ugh feeling about Saturn, it's showing you where there's challenges, but where there's challenges, there's a lot of purpose, a lot of potential for growth, right? So, so the sign of Saturn is important because it's like asking you which qualities you're trying to integrate, in this lifetime. The house obviously is where it's more important in my opinion, because that's where those lessons are gonna come. So yeah. And we could keep going, like there's a lot I could say, like even like, Jupiter, and like, I would say, okay, like we could even talk about before Jupiter, Jupiter, because it's kind of like the counterpart to Saturn. So Jupiter is about expansion, right? It's about fortune, enlightenment, abundance, like so many things, right? It's just everything Jupiter touches gets bigger. So in the chart, it shows us where, in what way we want to expand. So I'm a very Jupiterian person, for example, right? So very Jupiterian people are very optimistic. They always want to grow, positive. Thinkers. Okay, that sounds like I'm talking about myself. I shouldn't have said that, but that's how Jupiter energy is, right? But it's typically like it's kind of like opposite of Saturn, where Saturn restricts, Jupiter, enhances, right? Or expands, excuse me. So, I think that if you look at where your Jupiter is and what your Jupiter is doing, that's like where you have a very good chance of having a very helpful influence, right? Like an 11th house Jupiter, well, there's a lot that can go into that, right? Let's say what's a different example? Let's say a Jupiter on the IC or 4th house Jupiter, right? Like I can think of different charts of people who have very difficult karma with their parents. And I've also noticed even Jupiter on the IC, I've had a few clients lately that have had that, and they've had like really tough, like really, really tough upbringings. And it kind of makes me wonder, right? But like, I always think of it as like, that's where you have that expansion. That's where you're able to have perspective. So even if there's a lot of difficulty, like I was saying with one client, she had like Sun, opposite Saturn, and then Saturn opposite Moon, but then Jupiter was on the IC, and it kind of just like saved everything. And I think it was on her Moon and the IC. So she is able to have that she had all this difficult karma with her parents and just like in her life in general, and it was really holding back this fire energy and this earth energy from going, the Saturn, right? But she was able to understand, and when I gave her the reading, she was like taken away by it, because she's like, wow, you're right. Like, I didn't realize that because of the Jupiter, that gave me this perspective. And then she's studying to be a psychologist and going to probably help a lot of people and whatnot. So that's an example. But yeah, it definitely can tell us like where we can expand, where we can have perspective, where we can teach as well, right? Where we have a chance to have a elite understanding of something. And yeah, I mean, just with more opportunity and more luck, that can be somewhere where your life purpose is. Like I have 11th house Jupiter. I know we keep talking about my chart, so why not continue? So it's like, that's always helped me meeting friends. I think with you guys, maybe, I don't know. Like, I like to think most people like me. I don't know. And yeah, just overall, 11th house is about, it's kind of an interesting house. I'm not going to go all the way into it now. But basically, if you have Jupiter like in the 10th house, that can really expand and give you a lot of luck with your career, with your Dharma. 9th house, it can give you a lot of opportunities for growth and for travel and for understanding a larger perspective of life, right? That can, that you then take towards your Dharma and your mission. In the water houses, they can really, really help you, 4, 8, 12, really, really help you in like a kind of psychic, intuitive manner and spiritual protection, a lot of stuff like that, connection with ancestors. Yeah, not gonna go into all of them right now. Have I done a Jupiter video? Have we, Esme? I don't think so. But anyways, so basically Jupiter is about lessons learned in a nicer way than Saturn, through growth, through joy. So, like, for example, like I was saying, if you have Jupiter, like me, Jupiter Cancer in the 11th house, I expand and I grow, with the help of friends and I guess like circles, social circles or circles of people. I could say like, associate, not like for not for me, but just in general, like communities, right? That's the word for 11th house. So getting a lot of support from people, because it's in Cancer for me, it's like almost like my friends feel like my family, right? Cancer family. And there's a deep emotional, or at least like a karmic connection with them, right? Which ends up being emotional in a way, right? So so it's like getting a lot of support from people is a part of that purpose. But then also on the other side, it's about giving back to the community, right? So it's like by getting that help, you're giving back. So, and then the sign obviously is just like how you can find that good fortune. So for me, for example, in Cancer, it would be through exuding the highest qualities of Cancer, right? Which is that hominess, that I guess like, being a kind of that, like when I think of good Cancer, I think of someone who, get more comfortable. Someone who you don't know them, but they feel like your family. I don't know. There's some people I know like that who have like Cancer rising or Cancer Jupiter, Cancer placements, and they just exude this warmth, So yeah, it's almost like being able to it's very, very healing. So that's how I would say. But there's a lot more I could say. Okay, so next we can talk about aspects. I definitely have not taken any notes on the timestamps. I didn't know it was going to go this direction. I had ideas, but I didn't know. So this is all aspects, because even the sextiles and trines, right? But all aspects, because basically, I guess I could start writing this down right now. But yeah, so all aspects can show us a lot of our life purpose, because they are basically, if you have, so like the example I just gave before about like Saturn, in that chart I was talking about like the Saturn aspecting the sun and the moon, like that's really tough, but that is part of the life purpose, was whatever that energy represented, she was meant to overcome that energy, right? She was meant to go through the trials and tribulations related to that. So in essence, and when you look at like the sextiles and trines, like I was looking at a chart recently with like an amazing, or even like the full moon chart, I guess that's not in person. Well, we just had a full moon that had like a beautiful grand trine. Of course, there's definitely a baby born that day, but a grand trine between Neptune and Pisces, Venus and Scorpio, and Mars and Cancer, right? So like that can be part of the life purpose also, because that can represent an amazing, skill, right? So you also have to look at like, there's the way of looking at the chart from, I don't want to call it negative, but I take an approach when I break down people's charts, which by the way, book a reading today, the list is small right now. Everyone's been like so in their own world lately, but maybe now it will change that the full moon's done. But yeah, like there's been like so many, I just lost my train of thought. It happens sometimes. But anyways, what was I just gonna say? I hate when that happens. Anyways, I'm just gonna go and I'll come back. But yeah, so there is definitely like charts that have like this very special essence, right? That like the overall feeling of the chart, that's part of it. Okay, I remember what I was going to say. So there's some, I teach astrology too, one-on-one, anyone who's interested too. I go from a more of a negative approach in the sense of like, there's some astrologers that believe in, let's look at the most positive aspects, right? And I believe in the foundations. Like, let's get past the more. Let's understand the most difficult, right? Because if what's the use of understanding this grand trine that you have? Yeah, you should understand all of it, but like, if you don't understand like this really rigid Saturn energy and how it's blocking your self-expression, then what's the point of really like diving into this, music related, for example, or art related grand trine that you have, right? So, and sometimes the people's greatest talents come in the hard aspects, right? They come, let's say, in the Chiron aspects, like, just a lot of difficulty growing up that then leads them to be able to be very understanding, very empathetic. So it's very, very, interesting. But sometimes with the trines, especially, and even the grand trines, which is when there's, the four, like I said, the four or three connecting trines, it can be, like a lot of times with trines and grand trines, people can they have these amazing talents, but people can overlook them in themselves. Sometimes they can have that feeling that, like everyone's like this. Like, I'm good at this. Yeah, I'm good in this way. Yeah, I have these skills, but everyone's like that. But no, they're not, right? So, and that's especially true with people who have a lot of perfectionism in their charts, right? Which is another one that I don't think I made a video on. I need to make notes about these because I always, before I start recording, I'm like, what am I gonna talk about today? Why don't I have a notepad, which I have for everything else, which I do. I write them all over this calendar, but then it gets lost. And then I just don't like the ideas. But yeah, so if you have a lot of perfectionism, that can make that more difficult. But overall, it's about understanding, okay, what are the greatest talents that my chart is showing? And also with that, I think it's really important to just not have a self-limiting belief system in any way. Because, like, I always want to say this, regardless of what your chart says, you can do anything you want, If you love something, go for it, don't allow the chart to self-limit you. I feel like I've made a video about that, but yeah, I have. I wish I could put it right here. But yeah, do not let astrology or anything use it as a tool, but don't let it dictate your life, right? That's when it becomes bad. But anyways, back to the video. So yeah, so it definitely aspects can tell us a lot about our purpose as well. And everyone has a different purpose, and everyone has a multifaceted purpose. Sometimes our purpose can be very much linked to, something that's more ancestral, more about breaking, like, let's say like a Pluto conjunct moon person, right? The Hades moon, like they could have a lot going on around their family, around breaking, different generational curses and a lot of trauma. And sometimes people, like, we talk about the idea of life purpose, and a lot of people watch this and they might be like, well, I feel very stuck. Like, I feel like I haven't moved forward at all, See, now it's when I have good ideas for videos. Bear with me, guys. This is all for you guys anyways, so yeah, I don't even know what the idea is with that one. Let's write that down. But yeah, so life purpose can be a tricky thing. Very, very tricky thing for sure. But yeah, definitely understanding the big talents can be a nice thing. And understanding what comes, natural to us. Also, I would like to throw in there, so I would like to throw in there, I was not going to talk about most of this stuff. So also fixed stars, important fixed stars, and I guess you could say different asteroids too, depending on which ones, conjunct important points, right? So mainly I'm talking about like the royal stars, and I mean it's not the Bohemian stars. Just there's certain stars that are very, very important. Like for example, if your ascendant is, let's call it, I'm not going to do Regulus because I always do Regulus. Let's say you have Aldebaran on your midheaven, or Aldebaran on your ascendant, which is around 9, 10 Gemini, probably closer to 10. That, and if it's, let's say it's very, very close, right? Let's say it's like 0.05 away. Like that can be very indicative of fame and a potential for some amazing, or very, very high, mission. But I guess that goes more into the category of fate. But fate, is part of purpose, right? So if you understand, and not everyone has, it's one of those subjects like fixed stars and asteroids and whatnot, where it's like, it's complicated, and a lot of people will be like, well, I don't have any, of these stars conjunct important points, right? I don't have it, many of them conjunct ascendant or midheaven or descendant, any of the angles, right? I see to a lesser point. Obviously the sun, the moon, even Venus, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, but it's just something to know about, right? Because if you've never looked into that and you have one of these, it could be very, very empowering and important to know about. So yeah, but I'm not going to go too far into that because that's not really it. I think I've made a video about that already. I have. It's from like 6 years ago or something. It's called The Royal Stars of Persia. I looked so different. Okay, so we'll probably end it on the next one. So part of fortune, let's write this here. So part of fortune. So what is a part of fortune? Part of fortune is basically a calculation. So it's like the North Node, it's not an actual point. It's a calculation that is made based on whether it's a day or a night chart. It's essentially like a calculation with the sun, moon, and the rising. So imagine if on a point system out of 1 and 360, meaning the degrees, with like 1 degree Aries would be 1 point, and let's say like the last degree of Pisces, 29 Pisces would be like 360, right? Or I guess 0 Aries would be the first, right? I don't even know. Either way, you basically take what your sun, your moon, and obviously it's calculated for you, right? So it doesn't really matter, but I'm just telling you how it's calculated. You take all that, and you then have this part of fortune that lands somewhere in your chart, right? Based on how it's calculated. And it can tell you a lot. I always look at it as, this where you can really find a lot of fulfillment, a lot of joy, this sort of place of flow, right, in your chart. And it represents, different energies, different activities, different activities, different energies that can really put you in that state of flow, put you in that feeling of like, yes, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, right? So it's a very supportive and beneficial energy, kind of like Jupiter in that sense, right? But obviously it's different. But it's an area where there's a lot of ease in finding success. So like I said earlier, mine is right exactly on my midheaven, so I find success doing this kind of stuff, right? It's fun, and I think there's like with part of fortune, I've noticed there's this feeling of fun a lot of the time, right? There's this feeling of fun, there's this feeling of flow, right? And, the sign can tell you a lot about, whatever sign the part of fortune is in. It's very much, this is where you can. It's that same idea, right? like of flow, right? So you can kind of follow the higher energy of that sign to help and combine it with the, you know, with the where it's placed to kind of go down that trail. But I can make a whole video about part of fortune. But yeah, yep. What else is there? Let's think. Yeah, so I guess overall, there's a lot in astrology, obviously, as when we talk about life purpose. I still will always say that you should, it's good, even if you're very high up in astrology, it's good to have your chart read professionally or by someone that's not you. Like I have my chart read. I've had my chart read many times. I still do it some, here and there, because I like to hear different people's take. Because ultimately it's a manual, but there's always something that you can discover. You can always go deeper into it, right? There's always a, different connection you can make. But, also I guess I'll say, when we speak about purpose in general, just remember that not everyone is on the same timeline, right? Like things might come way easier for one person at some stage in their life. Some people are not meant, they're meant to, I don't want to say struggle, but they're meant to go through like lots of trials and tribulations until a certain age, or, like especially Saturnian people, that first, until the Saturn return, that first 29 and a half or so years can be very difficult, right? And they can feel very frustrated. Like imagine like the 7th house Saturn people, right? Or Saturn aspecting Venus. I know a lot of them. I know one guy in particular who just most frustrated guy. He wanted, not someone who's particularly into astrology, but he just wanted girls like so bad. Like, I mean, not like there's anything weird about that, but just like, that feeling of like, this is the guy that wants relationships the most. Like some people, they have more of like a, yeah, I'll take it if it comes, like not like so obsessed with needing that, right? And he had a lot in his chart that was that showed that kind of showed that potential, right? I forget exactly what it was, but it was a lot of Libra, I think, and maybe I can't remember. But the point is that it was just this frustration, and I was able to look at his chart and be like, yeah, like that's Saturn 7th, It's probably like, I didn't want to tell him that, but it's like, you're probably not gonna, I'm not saying it's impossible, but like even if you did get married before your return, like it'd be quite difficult when Saturn transited back over its original position, right? So, yeah. All right, guys, how long was that? 42, 43. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hope you guys have been enjoying the videos lately. I've been really, me and my editor have really been putting everything into these. I feel like there's finally been some momentum, so really trying to keep it going. I have like a few other videos that I have, kind of stored away, but I'm just like, nah, I need to keep coming with like the best videos each week. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I appreciate every comment. It really helps too. Every like, every comment, it really does help. I really appreciate it. I mean, the goal is eventually, I've been really banished on Instagram. I'm not gonna get into that whole thing now. I'm not gonna play victim either, but it's just the reality, right? And I really would love YouTube to be my main platform, or to have both at least, to have both equally would be amazing. So I hope you guys like my videos or value them. I hope that they teach you some things. And yeah, also feel free to let me know any suggestions in the comments of topics you'd like to see me talk about. Like there's really no limit. I can talk about anything that I know about, right? And also stuff like if it's something that like I don't know so much about, like tell me, like I will literally do research and make a video about it, because if it's astrology, there's a good chance that, pretty much most things, not everything, most things I know a good amount about, I have a good amount of experience with, and if I don't know so much, I can go and get it and get better. So thank you guys so much. Love you guys all. Hope you guys are doing amazing whenever you're watching this, whether it's 2024 or beyond. I'll talk to you guys later. Ciao, ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.